Chairman, thank you for teeing up this very important hearing. And we're going to have to do a deep dive, as my friend from Oregon said, on the aspects of this tax bill. But to my good friend from New York, and he is my friend, I'm glad he's asking for his eyes to be wide open, because this fire aim ready legislative 51-day rush to pass the most significant reform to the tax code since '86, this is predictable with the unintended consequences, the mistakes that were made, and the lack of economic punch that we're seeing right now, now that it's been into effect well over a year. Let me just strike down a couple of the strawmen that we've heard here today. You know, the last 2 years of the Obama administration had stronger job growth numbers than the first 2 years of the Trump administration, and that includes 1 full year of this new tax law. That is just a truism. And to my good friend from Texas, the ranking member who's setting up the straw man, that he's hearing all Democrats talk about completely repealing this bill, I haven't heard one member on this dais talking about completely repealing this tax cut bill, or anyone in our caucus.
Will the gentleman yield?
No, this is my time right now.
Okay.
Unlike the opposite side, who had 68 votes to completely repeal the Affordable Care Act, and now this president that is embracing a lawsuit in Texas that will completely repeal the Affordable Care Act and all the patient protections that come from it on pre-existing conditions, kids up to 26 staying on their parents' plan, getting rid of annual and lifetime payment caps. All of that would be repealed based on your votes and what this administration is calling for. So let's get serious about what we need to change with this tax code. Now, Dr. Gould, your testimony was talking about the danger of growing inequality and the wage gap in our country. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to expound on that a little bit. But first, I want to pop up a chart that we asked the Joint Committee on Taxation to prepare for us for this committee that shows the distributional effect of this tax cut. Many of us had a problem, not only the lack of incentives for the economic growth that we need, that's part of this tax cut, but the fact that it wasn't paid for, which with interest payments now will explode our debt by $2.3 trillion over the next 10 years because of no offsets, but also because of the distributional effect. If you take a look at this chart, and Mr. Chairman, I'd ask unanimous consent to have the chart included in the record at this time.
So ordered.
It shows that in 19 alone, those making over $1 million are getting a $64,000 tax cut under this bill, and those earning less than $100,000 on average, $464. And it's even worse than that. I mean, taxpayers in the bottom 20% of the income distribution is projected to receive on average a tax cut of $60 under this. Now, Dr. Gould, I think one of the great threats that we face in regards to future economic growth and just the stability of our society is growing inequality and the growing wage gap that we have in our. Does this tax bill help or hurt in that regard, policy-wise?
It hurts, right? Absolutely. The data you're showing here and the Tax Policy Center has also shown that individual income tax provisions in the 2017 tax law were indeed skewed toward the top of the distribution, with the top 5% of households getting about 40% of the benefits. So it is exacerbating the inequality that we have seen over the last 40 years.
Professor Earl, you too have done some research and looked into the implications of this tax law and the disproportionate benefit to the most wealthy, but you also indicated in your testimony today that this is going to get worse in the out years. How so?
Well, you take a look at the chart that you've helpfully provided here and compare 2019 to 2027, and I'll just draw everyone's attention to that very small yellow bar, which indicates what the people earning less than $100,000 are going to get. And what they're getting is a tax increase relative to old law.
You know, the other problem that we had, and this was something that was foreshadowed because they told us what they were going to do with the tax windfall, corporations and what they've used the tax cut for. We've seen huge share buybacks, dividend distributions, very little going into base wage increases. You got some token bonuses that were given out, but even that was qualifying, so not all employees received that. And this was exactly what corporate America said they were going to do with the tax cut when we were asking them. They were sitting on a pile of cash to begin with. And Mr. Eakin, I agree, and there was consensus that something had to be done to make us more competitive in the international tax regime. In fact, the previous administration, the Obama, recognized that too in their tax reform proposals. But what we've seen is this huge giveaway that has not gone to improve the wage disparity or the income inequality gap because of how corporations have chosen to use this huge windfall. And that's something I think this committee is going to have to look at much deeper policy-wise as we move forward on it. And then finally, let me just say that I'm always struck by the attention that these tax cuts receive when it comes to growth. When we know the two key factors with GDP growth is workforce participation and worker productivity. We have an administration in power now that's talking about reducing legal immigration in this country by 50%. If that happens, game over. There's no way we're going to meet GDP growth targets unless there's some baby boom that I'm unaware of that's happening in this country today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman.